Okay, so you had a really good win ratio or good win streak, and then had a loss streak, right? And then now you're kind of
Yeah.
finally stabilizing.
I was on a 20 game win streak and then I threw really, really hard. Like
Uh,
I don't understand how I went from winning so many games in a row and then like beating. Because that's what I was doing essentially.
yeah. So
Going 1 and
let's
9.
look back to like your. Can you scroll down all the way. Let's look at like some of your games at the beginning of it. So like click on like the 09 game.
0-9, okay.
Yeah, and then what we'll do is we'll look at the beginning of each of these games, and see if there was like any repeated mistakes going on, and we'll see how in your games that you win, how they don't really either appear or they're not as big of a deal in those games.
Okay. So should I download or
Yeah.
play this one?
What elo are you right now?
I'm silver 5.
Okay. What
I
elo
know,
were you
higher rank.
before the win
Don't
streak?
be jealous. What? Sorry, what?
What elo were you before you won like 20 games in a row?
Bronze 4.
Pretty good.
It wasn't that hard. Like, I'm not trying to, but like, they didn't know what they were doing, really. I don't know what I'm doing, but
Nobody knows what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing.
I think you know a little bit more. Alright.
Alright, fast forward the game. Lock the camera onto you. Double tap 2. Alright, pause it. So why are you starting at Raptors?
Um, it gets you level 4 without having to do drugs.
Now, do you know what the problem with starting Raptors is? Right here.
Um,
Not necessarily. Like, there's a way you can go around it, but I doubt you do that. If you do it, then more power to you. But do you understand why there's an issue with starting at Raptors?
it's not as healthy of a clear, but that I don't really know.
What are you taught? What are you considering in the beginning of the game? What should decide where you're starting in the jungle?
Where the enemy jungler is starting.
Okay. Now, where is it most likely that your enemy jungler starts?
At his blue buff.
Yes. So what happens? So what's the problem then?
Well, I'm gonna be pathing right towards him.
Okay. So and that's obviously something that we don't want to do, right? Because if you path towards the champion that can beat your ass, then he might just beat your ass.
Yeah. All right.
Um. Now, like I said, there are ways around that. I whispered you the Rift Kit link on over Twitch. Okay. Do you have Twitch open still? Maybe I'll just send it over Twitch app. Actually, Twitch app is Twitch, right?
All right. I just opened it up from the Twitch chat. So.
Okay. Do you have 2 monitors?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, go back in game. So, I'll just show it to the stream. So what we're saying here is if he does Raptors red blue, and then the Rengar does blue wolves red, then the options for him are very scarce because if he goes to Scuttle Crab, Rengar could obviously contest it, if not try to get a jump on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go top, well, if Rengar's there, you get wrecked. And then obviously if you go middle and Rengar's there, you probably also get wrecked because that's just not the strength of your champion. Which forces you into retreating back into your jungle. But that's not the best, like, if you do that and you retreat back into your jungle, then obviously your opponent Rengar gets to be able to do whatever games he wants, and you don't really get anything like out of it. Like if he goes and ganks top, you really can't punish him in any way because you're stuck on your side of the jungle. And the only openings currently would be to gank middle or to make do some kind of bot lane pressure.
Hmm.
Or there's someone else in here. Weird.
You posted it in the Twitch chat.
Oh, oops. I meant to whisper it. It's not a big deal unless they start
Yeah.
drawing on the screen, and then I'll have to make a new one.
Do it, guys.
Alright. So do you understand like why this isn't like not optimal
Hmm.
at this situation? Now, of course, what you can do is like do 1, 2, like you could even do Krugs. That's a really weird pathing. I don't honestly know that much about doing a pathing like this, but I have seen it done in a professional match actually. They did red wolves, red raptors, Krugs, and they backed. I've seen that done, but in the same instance, if you do 1, 2, 3, I doubt you're gonna have very much HP after doing the Krugs. Um, so at best you can gank bottom. Maybe you can go for the bot lane scuttle crab. But I'm not sure what your health would be after this, because Krugs takes a long time to complete, right? And obviously, at this point, you're gonna run out of mana with a Mumu, right? So you're really not gonna have that many options if you do your whole bot side. Like maybe you could do this and then back, but then the problem is you have to run top, and then we're in the same situation as before, right?
Yeah. All right.
So the adjustment that you can
Well,
make here, if I can delete this, would be 1, 2, 3 gank or take this, which allows you to do 1, 2, like one action, 2 action, and on your third action you're doing this while he's doing red. On the fourth action he's either ganking or taking the scuttle crab, and during this action you could go take his gromp and then back, because you'll probably be out of mana around here. But at least in this scenario, you have the opportunity to go for like, cause all you really need is like a Q, because you're not gonna probably kill anyone with a movement early game unless you have a lot CC coming from your laner as well. But this is at least like an option for you to take. But this is like I said, not the optimal way that you'd want to do it, because with a Mumu you obviously want to have blue, so you don't you're not restricted in the same way that we just talked about, right? So that's why, to me, it's the very obvious thing that you should have done in this game would to be start blue, because if he's starting down here, you start up here, you can avoid him, and you don't have to worry about all those really bad scenarios we talked about previously.
Hmm.
That all makes sense to you?
Yeah. It's just, how do I know what buff they're gonna be starting at? That's something I have trouble with. Like,
I would say about 90% of the games, your opponent's going to start on the bottom side of the jungle, because the only reasoning they have for deciding where they're going to start is I get a better leash bottom. And I know that because I've coached lots of you guys that are lower elo, and that's the reason that I've heard from you guys. You're not thinking about the pathing. You're just starting bottom because that's what you think is correct. So from the main part, you can assume that they're going to start bottom. Obviously, if you get any early game warding, you can use that to your advantage. And even if you made the mistake, so let's say you started blue thinking that he's going to start his blue, right? However, he actually started his red, and you know that because of the leash. Like the bot lane's already there, and then the top laner gets the lane late coming from the red. So now you have a good idea that he started here, or maybe he started like Raptor or something, right? So what you could do is do your blue, do your wool, and instead of pathing into where you believe he's going, you could path back to your Gromp, and then either Scuttle Crab, top, his Raptors, mid. Although the problem with mid is obviously he could counter gank mid, so mid's gonna be like a very scary thing. You have to worry about like whether you win 2v2, whether you win if you counter gank him, or whether you win if he counter ganks you. But you see in this scenario, you have a lot more options. Basically because of the side of the map, and because you have blue buff in this scenario. So you get 1, 2, 3, and then you can take.
is that I can farming a little bit later is not like farming for longer is not that bad of a thing. Like, since I feel like my ult is just so strong, and
No,
if I
that's
can
not the
farm-
reason. I don't think that should ever be your idea, is to just farm. Like in this case, you might farm, but you're taking things. So let's say you do 1, 2, 3. He does 1, 2, 3, and then he goes for a gank bottom, okay?
Mhm.
And let's say this gank doesn't work out. Like works out, quote unquote, in terms of like he blows like their summoners or something, right? But he doesn't get a kill. So now let's say he takes this check. So he runs all the way back to this grump. Now you're 100% sure that he's he's not on your side of the map. And by judging by his CS and just by how quickly he does his pathing, you know that both these camps are up. So even if you don't have an available gank to yourself, you can take one camp, two camps, and maybe just back, or maybe even to continue to go for a gank, right? So he does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 actions, but there's a lot of running here because he had to run across the map and you didn't. So this is almost like 6 actions, maybe even 6.5 actions. Whereas you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then he has to back, which takes 8 seconds and like a 20-second run back to lane. So you'd be able to do all this with complete safety. And the most important part about this is whenever he does run back from his camp, and like he would probably run to Raptors, I would assume, right? So he's gonna take a 20-minute walk here, and then these aren't gonna be here. So he might run up top, and guess what? Those won't be there. And because you know this, and you probably warded his jungle, you can warn that he has to look for a gank. You can just warn them, and you can just warn the person that he's most likely to gank. And then he ends up, depending on how well your teammates listen to you, and exactly what pathing he decides to do, he ends up doing this. Like, oh, these aren't here. Oh, that's not there. Oh, he sits in this bush, but your top laner doesn't die. Oh, this is you. If he runs through here, this is dead, and it might still be up at this point. So he'd show himself. So he might run all the way around like this, and then he can be forced to do like a mid lane gank. But you know that, so it gets him into this running scenario, right? And in this whole scenario of him running, by the time he's like right here, you've already backed. So now you're doing the same thing that he's doing, except that your whole bot jungle is still here.
Okay.
So if he does this and you do what you did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 camps, and then 7, 8, 9. Or you probably went for a gank, so like 7, 8, and then like another action. And he did 1, 2, 3, went for a gank, 4, did nothing. So he did 4 and you did 8 camps. So you see how like this would give you like exponential lead, even though you didn't necessarily go for a gank in this scenario. You have a large advantage over the Rengar in terms of farm currently. And it's not just that you're out farming him; it's that because you know he takes his camps, you know what options he has available to him, so you can always warn your teammates about what he's gonna do.
Alright, yeah.
Do you have any questions? I realize I just went over a lot there.
Yeah, I can always rewatch the VOD, so.
Okay. Do you have any questions like right now?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, like, if they're not there, then like, should take whatever advantage you can. I feel like there's a lot of risk, though. Like, I'm kind of scared to take risks in the game, and I feel like, I don't know how to explain this, but I think I'm not thinking well enough, so, if
I've noticed that, and I've mentioned that on my stream a lot, where like I think people that with both me and Spayman, I always say his name wrong. We acknowledged about like lower elos. There's a lot of number one, like there's not a lot of confidence, and there's a lot of fear, but those are kind of tied together, right? If you do it in this way of you assume that he's starting bottom, and then probably like right on your way over here, you see that the top lane leads. So now you know he started top, or at least you have a good idea that he started top. So having a good idea that he's going to be doing this, and you go here, you know that the only thing he could have done it with 3 actions. So he's either doing this, or invading you, but obviously invaded you would know by now. So if you haven't seen him by now, it's very likely that he's on the bottom side of the map. And it's also pretty likely that these are still up if his top laner leads for him. And he's not here, so there's no threat here. You know? There's nothing to fear. Now these are gone, you could always take the plant here. There's a plant that it's here, and you can go get these. And then maybe you can go for a gank. Yeah, Sentry, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, whenever you invade, it's not just that you're taking camps away from your opponent. It's that you're gaining information for your team. Because it allows you to, alright, he's obviously not here. when he comes here, there's nothing that's gonna be here, so he's gonna have to go do something else or run around like an idiot, which both is fine for you. And usually when you do invades like this, you see me on my way out, I ward. So like when he does run back, my whole team sees that he's running around, and they can play around it. All right, so let's see
I
what
don't
happens
get
in
my
your
team
game.
aware of that. Like,
You just ping.
I always ping, like, I spam ping whenever I see the enemy jungler, like, when I do wards like that. Because I've been starting to do that more, and maybe I was kind of felt tilted. I was definitely not playing at my best. When,
I mean, the best you can do is ping. Like, there's not if people still die to the ganks that are warded, blah blah blah. Like, there's nothing you can do about that.
okay.
It's gonna happen too. It's gonna happen all the time. But you can still, if by pinging and like by doing that ward and letting your teammates know, means you save their life 20% of the time. That might increase your win ratio by 2-3%.
Oh, wow. Alright.
So it's complete. It's definitely worth the effort. It's not gonna work every single game. Like just because you're doing the correct thing doesn't mean it's always gonna work, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's see exactly what happens in this game, and then see how we could have adjusted.
Are the graphics okay? It looks kind of laggy on screen.
On the stream,
I,
it looks
yeah.
fine to me.
Alright, whatever.
The
Should I speed it up more?
Centric will let me know. All right. Pause it. So Urgot's already in lane training, which makes it very unlikely that Rengar started on the top side because Rengar's not exactly the most healthy clearing early game jungler. Vladimir obviously is not a champion that can really give Rengar a really good what's it called?
Okay. Or
Raptor's leash. So now it's and the bot lane is coming to lane late. So you have like an orgy of evidence that the Rengar's bottom, right?
yeah.
Now, because you already started on Raptor, you're kind of committed to starting or doing this red, but you can still adjust in the future. The Rengar is often to do the very greedy route of doing all of his bottom cans for some reason, but we'll talk about that in the future. All right, go ahead and press play. Pretty much what I assumed would happen. Now this is where you pretty much just killed yourself. Like, pause it. Like, if Rengar didn't do such a weird pathing, you just killed yourself. Or I mean, you didn't necessarily die in this scenario, but if you look at the Rift Kit again, you did 1, 2, 3, and then you ran into the open where he could be while you're no HP against Rengar. How do you know he didn't do 1, 2, 3, hit this plant? And the second you show here, you have to flash away or you're gonna die. And even if you do flash away, if he hits like a bolo on you, you might die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is one of the moments where you should have fear, but you don't have any. You know what I mean? It's like really weird to me. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, this is very likely to happen for him to do this and you to do this. However, your champion gets destroyed by his champion, so why would you do it? Now, obviously, in this, like, in the replay that we just watched, like, he's really low. That's because he did a really bad pathing. But if he did this pathing, he would be, he'd have red buff. He'd be more healthy, and he would have been closer to you by the time you ran out here. But he did this, and then he did like these, which his pathing was just really weird. He could have punished you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could have easily died. So what were you about to say? Like, why did you come over here knowing that you're low HP, knowing that you don't win the 1v1?
It's just like, it's just something I always do. It's kind of like a routine I fall into, and I guess that's kind of like autopiloting, where it's not helping me in any way.
Yeah.
Kind of, I should be thinking more.
Obviously, if you're thinking more, it's a little bit better, and you can make more adjustments. Now, obviously, if you're thinking a lot, you might overthink some scenarios and think of bad. But as long as you have like a basis for why you're doing the things that you're doing, you can actually improve from it. If you're not doing things with a purpose, you can find yourself doing the same autopilot things all the time and never learning from the mistakes, never understanding why things work out, why things don't work out, and it just puts you in like a really bad loop. You want to be doing things with a specific purpose, That way you can recreate situations that come out positive for you, and you can avoid the situation that things don't go well for you, right?
Mhm. All right.
Okay, so let's go back into the replay then. Okay, so again, he did really weird pathing, but this is the scenario you're in now. Press play.
Did I slow it down?
No, yeah, 2 times is fine. Okay, so he was super low and had a back. Your fizz has priority, and yet still didn't like really go for you didn't try to take his red. Is what I'm trying to say. Like, why not? He wasn't there, and even if he was there, he has no health, and all you have to do is flash Q him and he dies.
Mhm.
So go back a little bit to like when you try to Q him earlier. Back again. Yeah. All right. So you see, look at his health. Look at his health compared to your health. You see super low. You see he's done his camp. You should be able to dissect that he's done his whole bottom jungle based on the CS. Um. So you know that he only has like a couple options here, and it's to back or to try to like do the red buff by like smiting it or something, right?
Mhm.
In both scenarios, if you just go into the red bush, you come out with an advantage. But what do you do here? Like, press play. So you see him super low. He runs away. You try to kill him, and then you ward it, and then you don't go to your red. Pause it. Maybe already you're thinking about running to the top lane, but it's Urgot, uh, which is a pretty hard champion to kill. Uh, but it's not like that bad of an idea. But like, why not go for the red buff here? There is there any reason like what?
I just assumed it was down.
But you just saw him, and you just saw him like a second ago. If he,
There's
if,
the reason I'm in silver.
yeah.
I don't really have a reason.
So you just did. I mean, your reason is that it's just, you didn't. You're not being aware enough. You weren't trying to notice what buffs your opponent jungler had, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have seen me when I'm jungling. That when I see that the enemy jungler pops up on the map, I very often click on the map just to see what buffs they have.
Yeah. I mean, it's an easy tip. I could just look at. I don't know why I didn't.
Yeah. Okay. But it's important to like dissect that. Be like, okay, so maybe if I was more aware of what buffs my opponent jungler had or my opposing jungler had, I would have made the correct decision to contest his red buff. You know,
Mhm.
that's a lot better than being like, I don't know. You can't really get better from I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, all right. How about I start using more definitive answers?
Yeah, press play.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't you hit this plant towards the red buff?
It missed it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Then what? Why did you walk back into the jungle for a second there?
I guess I could check. Yeah. Oh wait, no.
It would still pop up on the map. That's how the spectating thing goes.
Oh, okay. Um, I think I wasted flash here.
Yeah, your flash is really weird. Why'd you flash?
I didn't know how Trin to maneuver. Like I didn't know Trin could just spin to win over there.
Oh, well, you flashed at, like, go back. Go back again. So you hold your Q, which I think is completely fine. And then you finally use your Q. Ah, wasn't that bad actually. I assume you used your Q maybe to like try to protect your Tryndamere, but he could have pressed Q to heal himself. And then whenever the Urgot flashed, you could Q to catch up to him. But I think the way you played the gank itself was like fine.
Okay.
This obviously was not fine. Now press play or press pause. this also stems from you not knowing whether his red was up or not. Like if you know his red is up, it's very likely that he's gonna come back running to the top side jungle to go get his red, right? So you should have known after you were done with that gank, or even during the game, that if this takes too long, the Rengar is gonna be here. But again, you couldn't have known that because you've already made a mistake based on that information. This is just your second mistake based on the same information.
Mm-hmm.
So just by recognizing that his red buff was still there, you could have figured out both the things that we've talked about so far.
So did I have played that gank differently?
No, I think the gank was fine. I think not recognizing that the Rengar was gonna be here or very likely to be here is not fine. As for the reason I just explained. All right. Go ahead. What do you do off your spawn? You have the world is your oyster. All the things are alive. You know that Rengar's top. You know that. I mean, again, this is the same information. You know that his red buff is still up, but you don't know in this fight. But we know. So if you pause it. Oh, well, unless you do. Okay, what I thought you were gonna do was do your top jungle and then go back bottom, but that would leave you back in the same scenario, being on the same side of Rengar. But based on, I think you just pinged, like you might end up doing Wolves and then Gromp, which is like okay, but unlike in. So let me show you on the Rift kit again.
Mm-hmm.
So the pathing for that early game is always like that because all the camps are alive. Unlike with the, so you do 1, 2, and that the lanes are usually in a very predictable position. So doing this now is like still better than running down there. However, running to your Raptors and then pathing away from the Rengar would have been the most ideal choice. Unless, of course, like these always change. Whether if you think you can, like, even if you can't beat your enemy jungler 1v1, this you can change your pathing if you think you win a 2v2, like in mid lane, or if you think you win 3v3 in bot lane. Like if you have ultimate, you know, you could play differently, because then you start winning these 3v3 matches with the Rengar, right?
Mm-hmm.
But until you feel like you win your 2v2, 3v3, to 2v2 at top, you have to continue to play to avoid the Rengar. Okay? And that's gonna happen a lot if you play Amumu. You're gonna have to learn the art of avoiding your opponent. All right, press play. Let's see what you do. So you do end up doing this, but here's like kind of the issue. You're kind of forced to, like, you have like really no other option but to gank top. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Now if it works out, that's cool. Alright, now it's very likely that the red buff is gone. It's pretty likely that the Krugs could still be out. Oh no. What are you doing? Alright, you're going for mid now. Now pause it. It should be very likely that even if you, like, let's say you hit that, you have to think about whether you win 2v2, because if Rengar is on the bottom side of the jungle and he comes out after you hit this Q, like, do you win? The answer is no in this case. Because you don't have 6, and you're pretty low on mana, so you're not gonna be able to sustain in the fight for very long, right? So even going for a gank like this, that looks like very obvious for a gank, isn't necessarily that obvious. You always have to account for the enemy jungler. So you did Wolves, Gromp, top lane gank, and now you've gone down to your jungle, back to mid, and went for a gank that almost never works out. Right?
Why doesn't a gank never work out? Well, against
Well, it's Vladimir double summoners in your level 5 Amumu. So, and what I was saying with Rengar having there's no way you kill him very quickly. So Rengar is definitely gonna have his opportunity to come over here, and you don't win a 2v2.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right,
I literally think this never works out ever, if you understood the information. There's no way you ever kill the Vladimir here.
Mm-hmm.
Unless he's AFK.
Alright.
Now, again, I know that because, number one, I know what Vladimir does as a champion. Number two, I know, like, you're level 5. I know your limits as a champion. And number three is I know that likely that if this doesn't happen immediately, which is impossible against this champion, that Rengar can have the opportunity to counter gank me. Make sense?
Yeah, that. So I just have to be more aware of the jungler and where.
Yeah, you have to
More aware in general.
you have to have a ton of information. You have to take all the information that's available, because nothing I'm saying is not available to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Alright.
press play.
Um,
Rengar shows bottom here. You're not moving quite yet. I'm unsure if you even looked at what actually was happening bottom. Now, this is basically where the game resets. Both of you guys are doing your original buffs again, right? Actually, is Rengar still in lane? No, he went back to the jungle. So,
back?
no. I was just saying that this is like when the time that the game has reset, because it's the same camp spawns, right? So it's very likely that you're doing, you can do the same pathing as you did in the beginning of the game, and so could he. So it's likely that Rengar's at blue buff right now, unless he was so low that he had it back earlier, but I couldn't tell because you didn't change the map, and I'm not sure whether you did in the real game actually.
Mm-hmm.
Now in the real game, if you notice that he had it back, and you know that his blue buff is up, and you know that his red buff is not up, it's very likely that Rengar's going to come back down for his blue, right?
Yeah.
So this is a very similar situation as what happened earlier, where because you didn't know in game, but we know now that his red buff was actually up the whole time. So it's very likely that he was going to come back up here. So we could have accounted for that, but you didn't, because you didn't know the information about his red. Now you do know that his blue buff is up here though, and you could have known that he had a bag. It's just it was information that was available to you, but you didn't figure it out. Yeah.
Alright.
Press play. Alright, well that worked out pretty well. Now you should just back immediately. You have no mana, and there's nothing you really can achieve here. Even getting this doesn't really change anything, because pause it. Press X, or press O, then X. X, again. Like, why not just spin your gold and then go back on the other side of the map? If the way that you're doing this, you're gonna run all the way from bot lane to mid lane, or all the way from bot lane to top jungle. Why not just back and spin your gold and then go to your camps immediately?
I felt like I had to take something because we got that kill.
I mean, yes and no. Like, your mid laner dies, so that kind of opportunity just goes away immediately. Because you can't force it if you don't have enough numbers, right? Because it's like they equalize your kills. Like, you got to kill, but they got to kill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number two is, you still can't beat the Rengar 1v1. So, it's not as if you can just invade by yourself. Maybe if you ping for your Annie to come with you, you could have invaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys have seen me do that on my stream as well, where I'll invade and I'll tell the enemy support or the top laner to come with me. I've done that many times on my stream. So that would have been the only opportunity you really had to do something that like extremely aggressive, would be to have your support come with you. The other like higher elo thing that was available was to just circle around and just dive the Nami. But that's something that doesn't happen very much at low elo. That's basically because of fear. Like, that definitely was a possibility for you to just circle around, get that plant, and then dive Nami before Tristana has the opportunity to come back to lane. And you have a really good team at doing the dive. That's why I'm saying that. You have Annie stun, you have Euro stun, and then you also have Jin snare. So it wouldn't have been a problem at all. So that was like the one way you really could. It was either you invade with your support, or you go for like the wraparound dive on the Nami. Those were like your only possibilities to really get a punish on your opponents for having Tristana die.
Okay.
Alright, press play. So instead of backing, spending your gold, and like being useful or going for either of those plays, you're fighting people with like very low mana pool and having 1,200 gold in your inventory, right? So
Yeah.
obviously it doesn't work out very well. But again, I also think this still originates from not tracking the enemy jungler. There's so many times where if you just understood where the Rengar was gonna be, I don't think you would have made the incorrect decision. But if you don't know that information, you can't make the right decision, right?
Yeah.
At least it won't be a guaranteed. It's gonna be a guess. But it could have been guaranteed because the plays that he's making are very cookie cutter. He's not doing anything like special. He hasn't done anything like crazy pathing or anything.
I don't know why I take those like weird movements. Like I'm wasting time.
Yeah, I don't know either. You just like run like a random direction. You go for the lane gank top. Super duper force. Like Urgot has a jump away, you know, and it's not as if Tryndamere has a stun. Wow, that looks really weird. Oh, it's Urgot's off. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back. Let's dissect this a little bit.
From here.
Back
From-
farther. Now, the theme of the pause it. The theme of the lesson today has been knowing where the Rengar is gonna be. Again, Rengar is its bottom. He has to do his blue buff. Guess what? Guess what else is available to him? His red buff. So it's very likely he's gonna come get his red buff, which means he's on the same side of the map as you, which is fine if you think you won the 2v2. But this is information you could have known 100%, right?
Yeah.
Or you at least could have played around it. Even if it's not true information, you can play as if it's true. Because it's a very likely possibility. So that's number one. Number two is going for like a direct lane gank. Like you didn't even like go into the bush. Like you just ran for the gank in a lane where your opponent has an escape and he also has a summoners and your laner doesn't have a harm form of CC. You get pretty lucky that he decided to like face check the bush with the ward. Like he didn't face check it, but he came like right into you guys, right? So you got pretty lucky for him to even for this scenario to even happen. So those are all true things that you could have known, and you could have played differently. You could have done like a wraparound gank. You could have done that earlier too, by the way. Like you didn't hit the plant. You kind of just ran around. Like you could always just hit the plant and then do like a wraparound through the tri-bush, right?
Yeah. Alright.
You don't have to go super direct. Like there's some champions that can do super direct. Like for example, Sion. You can just Sion alt down, right? Rammus can just run down because he has enough movement speed. Elise can run down because she can repel, and she also has movement speed if you go mobility boots. Amumu does not have that same luxury. You have no mobility. You have to do very standard ganking.
Okay.
That makes sense?
So never wrap around like that? Or
No, wrapping around is good. I'm saying that running through the lane for lane gains isn't very good unless you're a really fast champion or unless you're ganking for a champion that can have a lot of setup for you. So for example, like Sins can like run up, fling them, and then into like the slow. Then it would be like okay, because then you would have setup for yourself. But here you're like you have no setup and you kind of force a situation that's almost never gonna work out for you, just like the mid game earlier. This is like a separate instance. This is him like later just running into a bush next to you guys. But the gank itself is never gonna work ever.
unless we get really lucky, like we kind of did.
Unless he
so we
flashes
did
into
get
you
lucky.
guys. No, because like I said, this is a separate instance. This is not your gank. This is him running into you guys later.
Mhm.
Alright, press play.
I don't like doing that. I wish I saved my. Oh.
ultimately worked out like okay for you, but um, the gank itself, like I said, was just like if you ended up doing like a wraparound gank and you go for that, uh, maybe the gank itself just worked out by itself, and you don't have to like prey on Urgot running into you, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you know Rengar's top currently.
Hmm. Well, I could have taken drag or something like that.
Probably not, but no, maybe now. It kind of depends on the bot lane. Like usually when I'm playing like a Mumu or a champion with a big ultimate like that, I try not to go for big agentas without having it up, unless there's like a really it's like free. I thought we were watching the game where you're 0-9. Is that still this game?
Yep.
So I wonder where the bad stuff starts happening.
This isn't bad.
It's not horrible. It could have been a lot better, but it doesn't mean it's horrible. This is kind of horrible. And that's again, just it's super similar. Like, that's definitely the theme of this lesson. It's just like you could track this Renguard, man. If you just think about it a little bit, what he's done has been very predictable, but you haven't really been adjusting. Also, your path, like the way you move your champion, is very indirect. Like right there, you did the same thing of like walking like back and forth.
I'm moving and then I don't. Sometimes I change my mind.
Yeah, like very
I
like
don't know.
fickle is the word.
Yeah.
That's something I need to start working on again. But I do know that when I was originally climbing Elo, that or just trying to get better at the game like mechanically, is you just try to do everything with a try to do everything like very distinctly. Like this is what I want to do. I'm gonna click here. Like when you go for a last hit, I'm gonna last hit right now. When you press Q, you're gonna press Q right now. Like don't let it be random. Don't let it be like spur of the moment. Like do every click that you do, like be on purpose. That will help a lot over time. We can go to a different
Let's
game.
just start adding a different game. Okay. Should it be another really bad one?
Just pick on one of your like more recent ones now.
I've been kind of slowing down how much I've been playing. Oh, I can't.
Random Rek'Sai game.
Oh, random draft pick. I was.
Normals. Okay.
Yeah.
Click on the game that you won. Four
That I
three one.
won?
Yeah. I think you can download it even though it's grayed out. Just click on it.
Alright.
Hover away and then yeah, you can play it.
So this is after I messaged you and I was wondering just something was not going well for me.
Yeah.
Or I mean it wasn't like in luck or anything. It was me doing something bad. So I was just trying to really like think about what I was doing.
Yeah.
I invade I think a little more in this game.
All right, caught.
Sorry, what?
No. Caught asked me to turn you up.
I'm not sure if I can turn my mic up.
I already did.
Oh, okay.
All right, lock onto yourself.
Oh.
All right. So you're going to use Ribbon Jungle, which isn't very standard. However, it's still very obvious to know which one of you guys win level 3 in a 1v1.
Yeah, I got invaded. Mostly because I was trying to just do clear. I was clearing the jungle a little bit more.
So what do you think that you should have started here? Do you think starting blue is good? Like, what's your plan when you start? Show me. Draw it on the Rift Kit. Pause the replay and then draw it on the Rift Kit. What's your plan?
What I do or what my plan is? Alright, my plan... Okay, how do I do this?
Click on the draw
Draw
tool.
and then... Alright, so I went from blue to wolves to raptors, then to red.
That was your plan?
Yeah, that was my plan.
Okay, well that's a very weird plan. Now, what do you think her plan is? What are you expecting the Riven to do?
Well, I was just expecting like
Draw it.
um I was expecting oh, sorry, I'm not used to this. Red wolves then blue, or like blue wolves then red. That's what I usually see. Like they usually leave their gromp up or something like that.
Wait, you were expecting them to do blue wolves then red?
Yeah, that's
Why? Why would you expect that?
because it's like the standard level 3 thing.
It's very not
Or
standard for someone to start on the top side of the jungle. Why do you expect Riven to start on the top side?
I was expecting like either, because I did before that. Before you explained it to me, I didn't really understand.
You're expecting
I
this one
didn't.
or this one?
Yeah.
Okay, but these are three actions. So yours is four actions. Um, so what happens here is her fourth action could very easily be to invade you. In which case, this is a horrible scenario, right? This is exactly what we don't want. Is to potentially
Yeah.
die doing our fourth buff. Allow her to do it, and then she can start playing with your heart by following you in the jungle.
Yeah.
Also, her fourth action could obviously be to go gank a lane, which you have no. Like, even if you felt like you might win a 2v2, you have no influence over it because you're doing a buff currently. And most likely you can't win a 2v2 anyway because you're a Mumu against Riven. Uh, so this is like the same scenario. Like you don't have that many good options, and that's because you're gonna end up on the same side of her. So even though this might be your original plan, I think if I don't know exactly what happens in this game, but if after you're doing this, it's obvious that she started red. Again, you could have done this kind of pathing to avoid being on the same side of the map as her.
All right.
And I think ideally you would have started at Raptors this time.
Of course, because the opposite side of the map.
Yeah, because
Never do it
it's
right.
very likely that she starts on the bottom side. So doing this would have been more optimal. Starting on red and then starting on Raptors and making your way down away from her.
Mhm.
All right, time to go into the game.
Fast forward it.
All right, let's see what happens here. All right, so one. So press backspace. Backspace. Now we have reason to believe that she starts at bottom side, right? Press play.
Yeah, because ADC didn't. Their bot lane didn't show up.
And Soraka's has used some mana, which you could figure out by clicking on the map. Oh, actually you actually don't have to click on the map. Press pause. Hover over like Garen right now, or Garen's a bad example. Hover over Lux.
Oh,
You see how it actually shows their health bar and mana?
wait, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a little bit faster to just click on it. And see.
Yeah, I normally click on it, but sometimes I do hover over them just to see if they use their mana. 'Cause that's all I really care about.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
All right. So you have reason to believe that Riven started on the bot side of the jungle right now. So you could adjust your pathing right now. Press
But I
play.
mean, wouldn't that be just kind of giving up a buff if I adjust it?
No. Because
I mean,
so
oh
pause
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Let's talk about it. Cause that's what I have some people say that same thing to me sometimes too. Like, well, I don't want to give up the buff. Like, you're not giving anything up because guess what? They don't know that you're not doing your buff. So it's
Yeah.
pretty likely that they don't even run into your jungle in the first place. That's true by itself. Um, sorry, I had to leave and rejoin. So you do this. She does this. So let's say that what you said is true. So she runs into red. Your red's up until she does your red, right?
Hmm.
But you do 1, 2, 3, and again you have assumed that she's already on the top side. So you right here you have the option to do scuttle crab, gank bottom, or You probably don't think you went 2v2 mid, but if you did feel like you went 2v2 mid, or you want like a counter gank 2v2 mid, you could like wait in the bush or go for a gank middle. So that's already 4 options. And then the other option is to just run directly into your opponent's jungle because they're not here, and unless they started Raptors and then red, these should still be up. And obviously these are up. You can go back and just do these because it'd be super weird if they did both of these. And there's a plant here, so you can just jump over this plant and take these. And then you have the option to gank bottom, or go back to the scuttle crab if you didn't do it. So you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 or 7 on a gank, and she might go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's pretty likely that she might go for a gank, but if she doesn't go for that, she'll probably do a camp, right? But in this case, you're going even with a champion that beat you early, right? So
Yeah.
that's good for you. She gets 3 buffs, but buffs don't have like some like extra experience. They're the same. They're the same experience. The only difference is you don't get the red buff regeneration. But it's not. That's not something you really need. You don't have the slow for your ganks, but guess what? You're not ganking in this scenario, and you don't really need the gank, the slow from the red buff because you have a stun, right? So this isn't the ideal scenario. The ideal scenario is to be able to do your buff and like avoid her, but this is still a way that you can adjust to the situation and come out even, if not ahead. Because obviously, if the same scenario that I talked about before, if she doesn't, let's say she does this part of the pathing, and then she goes for a gank, and it doesn't work out, then you get all this, and she goes back to doing her camp, and then maybe backing, and then guess what? She gets in that same scenario as before. Like now she's running around, and there's no camps down here. And then you're going back on your top side, and now you get your red buff, which is pretty likely too. And that would be a great scenario for you, right? That would make you ahead of an enemy jungler that should be beating you, right?
Yeah. So, wow. So, how often should I be doing something like that?
All the time. You should always be looking to avoid the enemy jungler if you can't beat them in a 1v1. Unless you think that you win a 2v2, and then you could path in a way to counter gank them. But that's not going to be very true with Amumu very often. That's more true with like champions like Gragas or like Cho'Gath, where like they might not win 1v1, but with a teammate where they can be tanky and their lane, like their top lane Renekton can do the damage for them. They have a lot more like counter gank scenarios. Amumu is not great at counter ganking. That's just like the reality of the champion.
Is it safe to be doing something like that though? Because what if he wards his jungle or something like that?
What's the worst that can happen? If he's up here and this is warded and you're right here, what are they gonna do about it?
I get collapsed by their laner.
Their mid laner by himself.
Yeah.
You think you're gonna die just to the mid laner by himself? Yeah, flash too.
I guess.
And if this guy leaves his lane, if someone leaves their lane really early in the game, that is so bad for them. They lose all their experience. And it's also is extremely bad for them if they come over here and then you're laner and then guess what? You guys are the ones pinching him. There really aren't that many scenarios where like this goes really that badly.
And it's kind of like a risk.
I don't think there's very much risk at all. There's sometimes where it's a risk. Like I've done games where I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then like doing this is risky because they're running straight back at me, and then the top lane is here. And I've died in this scenario sometimes, and sometimes I've gotten in and gotten out. Like this is more risky because I know he's coming to me, and their lane is already here. But that's because the jungler's here. In your case, the jungler's not even here. They're over here. So there's no real risk.
People are saying the screen's frozen, like it's glitched out.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wait, it's paused, guys. We're not playing anything. Is my camera working?
It looks really weird, like.
Yeah, I know it does that sometimes, but it doesn't matter because we're. Oh, I guess I'm not like showing you guys the rift kit. That's my bad. I was focused on the rift kit. Alright, press play. And we'll end up the lesson here in a second, okay?
Okay.
Let's see what happens in this game. Alright, so again, you're on the same side as your opposing jungler. You're giving them the opportunity to invade you. Now, she did buff, uh, Scuttle Crab. And so, I mean, this is the exact scenario I predicted. Like, this is not surprising to me in the least. She did 3 actions, and you did 3 actions, and you opted for your third action to be another camp instead of your actual buff. And so you just gave her an extra action of leeway for invading you. So we already
I don't
talked
think
about that.
invade would have worked.
Now, pause it. If I was the Riven, I would be sitting here waiting for you and killing you again. Because it's so likely that you're going to run back up here. I do this to people all the time. Um, Now maybe you end up going to your Gromp, but then I'd count in like my head and realize if you're not here by a certain amount of time, that means you went to your Gromp. But guess what? That's a lot of information, right? I now know that you're on the bottom side of the map. I know that you have Gromp, you have no more wolves, so I know that you're the Scuttle Crab or Gank is your only options right after that. So I get to take your Krugs and I get to warn everybody about where you're at. So both scenarios is really good for me. Now in this case, she goes for like, it looks like they're going for a Gank middle or something. But I just want you to know that because she did this invading, she got this kill on you, and it's so early in the game, and it's like very easy to figure out what camps are going. That like, that's what I mean, like playing with your heart. Like she gets to start making sure you have nothing to do in a positive light.
Okay. Yeah, so I got lucky because this is Silver 5, essentially.
Yeah. So press play. Let's look at like the next action, and then we'll wrap up the lesson there.
Okay.
Keep it locked onto you. Double tap Q. Or that works though. That's fine. You show yourself top. Again, you hit the plant in like a completely random direction, and then you ward the bush that you end up running past anyway. So your first ward was a complete waste. Your hitting the plant was a complete waste. Ward, the ward over the wolves is fine for sure. But it's just like you're not like using your resources very well.
Mhm. Was that invade okay?
The invade was correct. It's just the way you played the invade was kind of weird.
Yeah.
All right, you should back immediately. I'd hope. Yeah, okay. Looks like you are. The invade was correct, but
I just wanted to kind of hold the wave.
just throwing your ward, like don't ward until you actually need the vision. Like on your way out, if you ward that, then it's significantly more useful because it lasts longer. It's basically like wasting the time on the ward if you put it so quickly.
Mhm.
You know, obviously if you hit the plant like a random direction, you might as well not hit the plant, because that hitting the plant shows where you are to everybody on the map. You know that, right? Hitting the plant appears on the map for everybody.
Really?
Yes. So by hitting the plant, you are telling everyone in the game that you are there. Which obviously is a bad thing, because as everything that we talked about already, is we obtain information and we punish our opponents for it. So you don't want to give your opponent information if you can avoid it. Awkward. Oh god, the damage. Good invade, by the way. Alright, so we'll pause it there. Looks like the game ends up being like more normalish now. But you had a lot of opportunities earlier to make better decisions. And the enemy Riven also had a lot of chances to kind of like destroy you. But she gave you a lot of opportunities because instead of focusing on continuously oppressing you, she went to like try to help out lanes that weren't guaranteed. So again, the main story of the lesson today is to gather information and then use that to predict what your opponent's gonna do. And then like the side main point is like is deciding your jungle path based on what your opponent's doing, right? Not just starting like bottom every single game. Not just doing one side and the other side of jungle every single game. It should be fluid. It should be based on the matchups, right? And when we get more advanced into it, it's gonna be more about uh, the lane pressures. What's an important lane to gain? What's not an important lane to gain? Do I win the counter game? Now Amumu is very straightforward because he just doesn't win a lot of the early stuff. So I can teach him like very straight method. But if you whenever we end up playing a new champion, which we will eventually, um, it will become more and more complicated.
Okay.
All right. Do you have any like last questions?
Hmm.
You can always message me on Discord later. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
All right, man.
Thanks.
That's it for now. See you later. I gotta
Try not to
wrap up the stream now.
Yeah. Adios.
Peace. All right, guys. That's